In the heart of an overgrown forest, hidden from the eyes of the living, lay a forgotten mausoleum. Time had weathered its stone walls, and creeping ivy claimed its structure. Bram, an intrepid archaeologist driven by a thirst for uncovering the unknown, stood before the ancient edifice. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves, setting an ominous tone for the journey ahead. Cassandra, his loyal assistant, and Tavian, a local guide with a mysterious past, flanked him. The trio had come seeking relics rumored to be hidden within, unaware of the sinister secrets that lay in wait. The entrance to the mausoleum was sealed with a heavy stone door, etched with runes long forgotten by time. As Bram and his companion struggled to push it open, the forest seemed to grow quieter, as if holding its breath. A chill ran down Bram's spine as the door creaked open, revealing a yawning darkness. Cassandra lit a torch, its flickering light casting eerie shadows on the walls adorned with ancient carvings. Tavian muttered a silent prayer, his eyes darting nervously. The air inside was stale, carrying the weight of centuries of death and sorrow. As they ventured deeper into the mausoleum, the oppressive silence was broken only by their footsteps echoing through the cavernous halls. They passed by alcoves holding long-forgotten coffins, each one marked with names and dates from a bygone era. The carvings on the walls depicted scenes of rituals and burials, hinting at the mausoleum's dark history. The further they went, the more Bram felt an inexplicable pull, as if something within the depths was calling to him. Cassandra, ever the skeptic, brushed off his concerns, while Tavian's unease grew palpable. Their journey took them to a grand chamber, its ceiling lost in shadow, where an ornate sarcophagus lay at the center. The walls were lined with shelves filled with ancient tomes and artifacts, undisturbed for centuries. Bram's eyes widened with excitement at the sight of the treasures, but a sense of foreboding gnawed at the edges of his mind. Cassandra began cataloguing the items, her professional demeanor masking any fear she might have felt. Tavian, however, stood frozen, his gaze fixed on the sarcophagus as if it held his worst nightmare. As Bram approached the sarcophagus, he noticed a set of keys hanging from an iron ring embedded in the stone. Without thinking, he reached for them, his fingers brushing against the cold metal. The moment he touched the keys, a low, guttural whisper filled the chamber, echoing off the walls. The torch flickered violently, casting grotesque shadows that seemed to dance and writhe. Cassandra and Tavian looked at Bram, their faces pale with fear. The whisper grew louder, more insistent, as if urging them to unlock the sarcophagus and unleash whatever lay within. As the whispering grew louder, Bram couldn't resist the urge to unlock the sarcophagus. With trembling hands, he inserted the keys, each turn of the lock echoing through the chamber. Cassandra held the torch higher, her eyes wide with anticipation and fear. Tavian backed away, his instincts screaming that they were about to unleash something dreadful. The lid of the sarcophagus slid open with a grinding noise, revealing a skeletal figure adorned in decayed ceremonial robes, clutching a blackened ancient book. The moment the sarcophagus was fully opened, an icy wind surged through the chamber, extinguishing the torch and plunging them into darkness. Cassandra gasped, fumbling for a match to relight it, while Bram stared at the skeletal figure, feeling an otherworldly presence wash over him. Tavian, eyes wide with terror, whispered tales of ancient curses and restless spirits. The darkness seemed to press in on them, amplifying every creak and rustle, as if the mausoleum itself was alive and watching. With the torch relit, Bram cautiously reached for the blackened book, feeling a strange compulsion to open it. The moment his fingers brushed the cover, the runes on the walls began to glow with a sinister light. The air grew thick with a palpable sense of dread, and the ground beneath them trembled. Cassandra urged Bram to leave the book and escape, but it was too late. The book opened on its own, pages flipping rapidly as if driven by an invisible force, and a chilling voice began to chant in an ancient, forgotten language. As the chanting grew louder, spectral figures emerged from the walls, their hollow eyes fixed on the intruders. Cassandra and Tavian screamed, backing away from the ghostly apparitions that now filled the chamber. Bram, entranced by the book, seemed unaware of the danger. The spirits circled him, their whispers blending into the chanting, creating a cacophony of torment and sorrow. Tavian grabbed Cassandra's arm, urging her to flee, but she was rooted to the spot, unable to tear her eyes away from the unfolding horror. The ground cracked and shifted, revealing a hidden passage beneath the sarcophagus. The spectral figures vanished as quickly as they had appeared, and the chanting ceased, leaving an eerie silence in its wake. Bram snapped out of his trance, realizing the danger they were in. He grabbed the book, tucking it under his arm, and motioned for Cassandra and Tavian to follow him into the passage. The air was thick with an ancient power, and they knew there was no turning back. They descended into the darkness, unaware of the true nightmare that awaited them below. As Bram, Cassandra, and Tavian descended into the hidden passage, the air grew colder and the darkness more oppressive. The passage walls were lined with more runes, glowing faintly and casting eerie shadows. The deeper they went, the more they felt an overwhelming sense of dread. Suddenly, the passage opened up into a vast underground cavern filled with ancient, crumbling statues and an altar at its center. The air was thick with the stench of decay, and the distant sound of dripping water echoed ominously. Bram felt an irresistible pull towards the altar, as if some unseen force was guiding him. He approached it cautiously, the blackened book clutched tightly in his hands. Cassandra and Tavian followed, their eyes darting around the cavern, expecting danger at every turn. As Bram reached the altar, the runes on the book began to glow, and a deep, resonant hum filled the cavern. The ground trembled, and the statues seemed to come to life, their hollow eyes glowing with an unnatural light. The air crackled with energy as Bram placed the book on the altar. The runes on the walls and the book pulsed in unison, growing brighter and more intense. A blinding light erupted from the altar, enveloping Bram and lifting him off the ground. Cassandra and Tavian watched in horror as he was consumed by the light, his screams echoing through the cavern. The statues moved closer, forming a circle around the altar, their stone faces twisted in grotesque expressions of agony and anger. As the light began to fade, Bram was lowered back to the ground, his body lifeless and his eyes void of any recognition. The book snapped shut, and the runes ceased glowing, leaving the cavern in near darkness. Cassandra and Tavian rushed to Bram's side, but it was too late. His body was cold, and an ethereal mist began to rise from his form. The statues, now motionless once again, seemed to watch with a silent, malevolent satisfaction. The ground beneath the altar cracked open, revealing a dark abyss. In a final, desperate attempt, Cassandra grabbed the book and hurled it into the abyss. The moment it disappeared into the darkness, the cavern began to collapse. She and Tavian struggled to drag Bram's body away from the altar as the ground crumbled around them. They barely made it back into the passage, watching in horror as the cavern was swallowed by the abyss. The mausoleum above shook violently, and they knew they had little time to escape. With Bram's lifeless body between them, they raced against time, the echoes of their footsteps the only sound in the suffocating darkness. As Cassandra and Tavian hurried through the collapsing passage, they could hear the echoes of the cavern's destruction behind them. Dust and debris filled the air, making it difficult to breathe. They stumbled and fell, struggling to keep moving with Bram's lifeless body between them. The mausoleum above continued to shake, each tremor a reminder of the impending doom. The oppressive darkness seemed to close in around them, as if the mausoleum itself was determined to keep them within its grasp. Emerging from the passage into the main hall of the mausoleum, Cassandra and Tavian were met with a horrifying sight. The once dormant spirits were now fully awakened, their spectral forms swirling around the chamber in a frenzy. The air was filled with ghostly wails, and the temperature plummeted, their breath visible in the freezing air. Cassandra tightened her grip on Bram, her determination unwavering. Tavian, though terrified, steeled himself for what lay ahead, knowing they had to escape before the mausoleum claimed them all. Desperation drove them forward, navigating through the maze-like halls of the mausoleum. The runes on the walls flickered ominously, casting an eerie light that barely illuminated their path. Each step felt like a battle against an invisible force trying to drag them back. The exit seemed impossibly far, the weight of Bram's body and the relentless pursuit of the spirits taking their toll. Cassandra's mind raced, searching for a way to break free from the mausoleum's curse and save Bram. Just as they reached the entrance, the heavy stone door began to close on its own, the mausoleum's final attempt to trap them forever. With a surge of adrenaline, Tavian rushed forward, using all his strength to hold the door open. Cassandra squeezed through the narrowing gap, pulling Bram with her. The spirits' wails grew louder, their forms becoming more distinct and menacing. Tavian's muscles strained as he fought against the door's weight, his determination fueled by sheer survival instinct. With a final, desperate push, Cassandra and Tavian managed to escape the mausoleum, just as the door slammed shut behind them. They collapsed on the forest floor, gasping for breath and trembling from the ordeal. The spirits' wails faded, replaced by the haunting silence of the overgrown forest. The mausoleum stood silent and foreboding, a reminder of the horrors they had faced. Cassandra looked at Bram's lifeless body, tears streaming down her face. They had escaped the mausoleum, but at what cost? The realization dawned that Bram was forever trapped, his spirit bound to the ancient curse. In the aftermath of their harrowing escape, Cassandra and Tavian sat on the forest floor, catching their breath. The silence of the forest was a stark contrast to the chaos they had just endured. They looked at Bram's lifeless body, the reality of their loss sinking in. The mausoleum, now silent and foreboding, loomed behind them. The ancient curse had claimed another victim, and the weight of their failure pressed heavily on their shoulders. Cassandra felt a profound sadness and guilt, knowing that Bram's spirit was now bound to the mausoleum. As dawn broke, the forest began to come alive with the sounds of birds and rustling leaves. Cassandra and Tavian knew they couldn't stay. They had to return to the village and report what had happened. They gently lifted Bram's body, carrying him through the forest with a mix of sorrow and determination. The journey back was long and silent, each step a reminder of the horrors they had faced. They resolved to ensure that no one else would ever venture into the cursed mausoleum again. Upon reaching the village, the news of their ordeal spread quickly. The villagers listened in stunned silence as Cassandra and Tavian recounted the events. There was a palpable fear in the air, and the elders decided to take action. They organized a group to seal the mausoleum permanently, using ancient rituals to ensure the spirits within would never be disturbed again. The village would remember Bram as a hero, his sacrifice a stark reminder of the dangers that lay hidden in the shadows. Cassandra and Tavian stayed to help with the sealing of the mausoleum, performing the rituals with heavy hearts. As the final stone was placed and the last incantation spoken, they felt a sense of closure. The mausoleum stood silent once more, its entrance hidden beneath layers of protective charms and symbols. The forest seemed to breathe a sigh of relief, the dark presence that had plagued it for centuries finally subdued. Despite the closure, Cassandra couldn't shake the feeling of Bram's presence. She often found herself drawn to the edge of the forest, staring into the darkness. She knew that Bram's spirit was trapped within the mausoleum, forever bound by the ancient curse. Though she couldn't save him, she vowed to honor his memory by ensuring the village remained safe. The haunting experience had changed her, leaving her with a deep respect for the unknown and a promise to protect those she loved from the horrors that lurked in the shadows.